we now come to our next and final speaker, who is Rohit Sai Chetla. We have been reading stories about, the legends from the startup space who drop out of colleges and schools and do some remarkable stuff. Here is a guy who kind of decided to start his startup while he was in college, studying for his course in the Rice University, USA. So, inviting Rohit to take the stage and answer the question that we have posed to him. How easy or tough it is for an Indian student in USA to run a startup while in OPT, considering the US visa norms are as complicated and tough as they are. To run a startup while in OPT must have been, if nothing else, certainly a lot of fun. But I'm going to let Rohit answer that. Rohit, over to you. And as they say, your time starts now.
So thanks a lot for the introduction, Sachin. So just to answer your question, it's no fun starting a company in the US while you're on OPT, just to give you a straight answer. But I'll get into the details so that our audience can understand the exact process of starting the company in the US and how do we make sure that we take care of certain things during the OPT process. Well, coming from my experience at least. So the first thing, anyone who's interested in starting a company in the US while on OPT would be to understand that they'll have to start the company in the same domain as their master's program. So if you're from a computer science background and you're doing your master's in computer science, you'll only have to build a software startup, and that's the condition which will make you eligible to build your own company in the US. So if you're a computer science major and you're trying to build an electronics company, we can say, but electronics also use computer science, in some part of it. The problem with American law is they don't recognize electronic company as a computer science company. So even though it involves certain computer science aspects, you'll have to be spending a lot of time arguing and debating, your case with an attorney to make sure that you're not in violation of your master's degree OPT regulations. So the straight answer for anyone is that if you're in a particular course like computer science, you'll definitely have to start a computer software startup. And if you're in a finance course, for example, you can start a fintech startup, but not otherwise, right? So that's the first thing which I was told when I initially got started. And the next one is, let's say you have decided that at the end of the day, I understand there are some problems here, but I still want to start the company in the US, right? So how do we go to the next step of starting the company? So we've chosen that, I'm from a computer science background and I'm going to start a software company in the US. And the next thing to take care of looking at is this one, which is deciding on what legal structure you want to go with. So there is an LLC, which is called Limited Liability Partnership in India, where it's limited liable company in the US, and there is a C corporation. The C corporation is a legal structure which almost all of the companies follow in the US, from Apple to medium startups, right? So C corporation and LLC have a comparison chart on the screen. So C corporation is very, very expensive to maintain in the US. So $5,000, $7,000 is just something which was told in my case, where we don't have many sales happening, in the business, and because we're just getting started. But it can range anywhere between 5,000 to 15,000 per year to maintain a C corporation. Whereas LLC in the US can be maintained for $2,000 to $3,500, depending on your own sales and funding cycle. And C corporation have very, very strict regulations because, as I said, this is a corporation structure which is followed by large companies. I think almost every company in the US. So they have very strict regulations to report what business you're doing, your customers' privacy policy, and everything concerned to legalities. C corporation is very, very complicated. Obviously, LLC is a little bit loose compared to the C corporation. But the problem again comes here that C corporation is required in the US to get a VC investment. And LLC, not most VCs, I think not any VC in the US is interested to invest in an LLC company. So coming back to what I did was I opened an LLC to begin with, because this is what a lawyer suggested me to do, the attorney in the US. Maintenance of C corporation is no way justified in the business which you're already in, because you already have a live business running in India and you're trying to expand it to the US. And if you open a C corporation right now, you'll just be tied up in the legality process and you're trying to maintain the company instead of expanding it, right? So they suggested that I open an LLC to begin with and then convert it into a C corp. That's also an option in the legal code in the US when I get a VC investment. So that's what I did. And there is also a requirement for you to choose a state which you start the company from. So even though I'm based out of California, I didn't want to start the company in California because the laws around California are really strict. It's almost like GDPR versus other countries, right? So California laws are different, Delaware laws are different. So every Y Combinator startup, Y Combinator, the biggest startup accelerator in the world. So they enroll startups and they suggest that we use Delaware LLC instead of California, New York, or any other state. And the problem with starting a company while on OPT is you have OPT for the first year and then you have something called a STEM OPT for the next 2 years. But according to the US law, students are only eligible to work on their own startups for the 1 year of OPT work, not for the STEM OPT part. So, but what do you do? Let's say I start the company and I'm seeing some considerable traction in the market, and now you're asking me to leave my company, or what will basically happen. So this is what will happen on year one. You can work on your own startup. You need to maintain a very clear, proper taxation structure and also be regulated in a way that it doesn't jeopardize your visa status, right? So there are a lot of problems and legal questions which I cannot answer at this point, and definitely will be concerned to a US attorney. So we need to maintain all of those in the year one as well, to first of all run the business and also to maintain the visa status. Because if the business which is being built on OPT year one is having some problem regarding a tax problem or a legal problem or anything, that could easily jeopardize your visa status, and you'll have to leave the US basically when the problem starts. So maintaining the company is, I think, a priority which the people want to do. And the second thing is, let's say I'm starting the company and I've now moved on to year two. What we need to show is a considerable traction from year one. So what do you mean by considerable traction? That's a problem which US laws have not clearly defined yet. So is it $1 million in sales? Is it $1 million in VC investment? Right. So it's always debatable. And what most people do is they go to an attorney and try to make their case instead of arguing, saying I have $1 million in my bank or something. Right. And there's also minimum employee count, which is required inside of the company in the US to make you eligible for the working on the second year. Right. And from second year and for H-1B sponsorship, after the visa expires, you'll basically need a company which is e-verified. It's a legal thing, you can say, company which is e-verified. You need to get this verification on the company which you've built so that it can sponsor your visa. So this is the process for the first year, and on the second year it's incredibly complicated. I try to simplify it as much as I can. So there are also other regulations like the foreign founder forms and other legal regulations, because we're not an immigrant of this country. And also certain times, depending on what you're doing in the business, attorneys have told me that it can come off as that you've come to the US for studying, you've built your own company on OPT, and now you're moving into year two and you're trying to establish the company right here in the US. So what intent do you have? So do you have a non-immigrant intent, which is to come study and then go back to India? Or do you have an immigration intent? So you came from India and you want to settle in the US. Obviously, a lot of people want to settle in the US, but that's not something considered as healthy in the US regulatory, even with the cops and the borderline security. So that's also a little, I can say, in the gray. So no one has the answer of how to portray yourself as while running this company.
Well, sorry to do this, but 1 minute left.
I'm done. Yeah. So if you want to get started right away, or if you have someone who wants to get started on this, there are two sources I would suggest you guys take a look at. One is Zen Business. What they do is they simplify the process of hiring an attorney, going through the legal process, thereby making it completely online. And if you are from India and probably want to start a company in the US, instead of going through these OPT regulations, Stripe has recently announced, I think it's only been a month, that there is a international payments platform. So you need to open a company in India and then use Stripe to open a company in the US and do business in the US instead of being in the US. So yeah, that's all I have to say for today. And if you have any questions, as I'll be available after the event. Thanks a lot.
Sure. Thank you so much, Rohit. This was a subject that we wanted to cover because of the curiosity associated with what you have been doing and starting your own startup over there, and of course, with its development center in India. So, thanks for throwing light on this subject.